The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast NH. This is a podcast designed by writers for writers on the journey to being published. Joined Mandra Biscornet.
It was so healthy and nutritious.
Deborah Monk.
Can we open each podcast with a dance number?
Shelly Devlin.
It was so full of inspiration and sparkles.
Every Tuesday morning live on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to catch the podcast anytime on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. It's time to be inspired, feel empowered, and be well with the Writer's Block Podcast NH.
And welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast. I'm Mandra.
I'm Debbie.
And I'm Shelly.
Thank you for joining us at the Writer's Block, where our mission is to inspire, empower, and to help people be well. We've got a great show for you today. We are going to be talking about dialogue tags, what they are, how to use them, how not to use them.
Very important.
Equally as important as how to do it. We're going to do it right and we're going to do it wrong and see if we can figure out the best way to tag your dialogue so that the reader knows who is talking, because that is basically what dialogue tags do. They let us know who's speaking so that you can clearly follow the dialogue in your manuscript. They can go at the beginning of a quote, they can go at the end, and they can go somewhere in the middle. So just for example, really,
that's what she said. Would that be a dialogue tag?
She said is the dialogue tag, yep.
She actually said she said. She has to say she said. That is just...
well, that's what she said.
None of that is a
she
quote.
said.
Oh, Lord.
Again, right?
Right?
Just
That's
wondering.
what she said. She said.
He said.
If she said...
Who's on first?
Wow, that's a big baseball bat you're carrying.
Yeah.
Then that's what she said.
That's what she said.
Mandra took it to
Wow,
the gutter.
high five, girl.
It's a little early in the show. Shelly's going to be helping us out with some of
That's
those
a separate
later.
show.
But oh god,
Yes.
All right, this isn't a Skype call, ladies. Let's enough with the yelling over here.
Oh, sorry,
sorry,
Jonathan.
Louise.
I know our
Sorry,
volume
we just
was
blasted
Yes.
Jonathan's ears.
Well, see, in a movie, you see and hear who is talking.
Right.
And so that's what dialogue tags are meant to do. They need to clarify who is speaking, because in a book, you can't see the characters.
right. So we're going to use the he said and they said or she asked.
Well, and there are two kind of schools of thought on that.
Two said debates.
Two debates.
The debates about said. There's the said haters that say that people do not simply say words, rather they whisper them, they yell them, they remark, they argue. They believe that using more descriptive words paints a clearer picture, which Deb paints the clearest picture ever with descriptive words.
But I don't use those.
But that
Well,
can
sometimes.
get lost sometimes as well. So the pro said is saying that, said is where it needs to be. That all of those extra verbs are distracting the reader.
Right. So they're saying you want to keep it simple and use said and asked so that it just sort of guides the reader along and you don't get pulled out of the conversation by using sort of fancier
Doesn't that make
words.
your writing a little bit more like Fun with Dick and Jane? Jane said
No,
this.
not at all.
No.
Tim
Because
said that.
said,
Well,
if
it
it's
could.
done badly, then that's what happens.
But we're going to talk about that
Right.
because you don't have to tag every single line.
And you don't have to tag it with just words of he said or exclaimed or screamed. There are many ways to do it.
Isn't it just an indication that someone's talking when you put quotes around it?
Well, yeah, but if you have line after line after line after line, you start to get confused on who's saying
Which
what.
character's saying what, especially
Right.
maybe there's multiple characters.
Right.
And then I think if you go too simple, like the Dick and Jane, is you've come from a story and then you're leading into a dialogue, so you don't want to bore it out with Dick and Jane.
Well, and if your writing is well done, the reader's going to skim right over said.
Right.
It's just going to cue them into who's speaking, but they're not going to see it, and that's what you want. Whereas if you wrote he guffawed, that's going to pull the reader out because they're going to think, well, what does guffawed look like,
First of all,
and
I
what
have
does
to
that
look that
mean?
up because I have no idea
Exactly.
what that means. Okay.
Because when I was young, because I've been writing since I can remember, one year for Christmas,
With a crayon.
yes, or a pen on my hand, whatever. But for one year for Christmas, I asked for a pocket-sized thesaurus, and I got
course
it
you did.
in my stocking. So at the time, I was probably 8 or 9.
Shelly, did you ever ask for a pocket-sized thesaurus?
Pretty sure no. pretty sure no.
I always thought
yeah.
that was a dinosaur when I was 8 or 9.
It might have been.
Yes.
Clearly, somebody should have given him a dictionary.
Talking about a thesaurus where I went to grade school was a great way to get your ass kicked.
Yeah. So what I did is I looked up all these words, and I thought, he begged, he pleaded, he scoffed, he whined, he guffawed, and so then that's what I did. That's how I made my writing better. And when I was in 2nd and 3rd grade, I would get great grades for that.
They were impressed that you knew those words.
Exactly.
Did you go to a good school? Because I think you could have gotten beaten up as well.
No, I didn't get beaten up. I'm a girl.
I used to go to school with 2 sets of lunch money.
The bribe
One
money, like the
for
mafia.
this bully and one for that bully. I just
And you never
ate.
got to eat?
I never ate.
Poor Jonathan.
Oh, poor Jonathan. Is that going to be in your book?
It is. It's
Okay.
in there.
good.
It's
Okay,
in there.
good. Intriguing.
And you can tell us what the bully said.
By
Yes.
tagging the dialogue properly.
Correct.
But don't tell us he yelled at you. Where?
Or exclaimed loudly.
Yeah.
So
Well, I did do a little sample here. So I did this morning. I woke up and I wrote a bad example. So it's just a paragraph, and then I wrote it better.
okay, so the first thing we're going to hear
Is bad. Hopefully you can tell it's
Okay.
bad. So, take off your clothes, he exclaimed excitedly. I will if you will, she mumbled back. I have the gun, he insisted. You have to do what I say, he ordered. But I have something you want, she bargained. Really, he shrieked. What is that, he demanded. Proof, she yelled. First, I need to know if you're wearing a wire, he shouted. The question is, she muttered, which do you want more, proof or me naked? So you can see I used a lot of different words. It's he said, she, it's he exclaimed,
It
she.
feels like a comic book, like bam, pow.
Right. You're kind of bouncing back and forth.
and
So
you're missing.
you don't get any visual. You don't know what they.
I don't know about you, but I had quite the visual.
He
Yeah,
got
I
stopped at
think you
naked. He
get-
stopped right
right.
at
Take
naked.
off your
First
clothes.
line, take off your clothes.
Take off your clothes. There's a visual, but you really miss the discussion because all the tags are exclaimed loudly, shrieked.
demanded, ordered, yelled.
I would say
shouted.
one or two wouldn't be the end of the world, but if you're trying to make every single sentence pop, your sentences are competing with each other.
Exactly.
Right.
You want to just
and there's no
pick-
breath. It's just boom, boom. You feel like you're watching a
Right,
tennis
so
match.
You did every single one. Every
Right.
single line had a tag,
Yep.
and every tag was kind of over the top.
Way over the top.
Right. So then you redid it.
So here it is redone.
Okay.
Take off your clothes, he said, his voice high-pitched like he had just sucked on a helium balloon. Her fingers played with the top button of her blouse. I will if you will. He cleared his throat, desperate to sound strong, in control, when he was anything but. I have the gun, just do it. She leaned forward, not close enough to touch, but close enough so he could smell her perfume, the one she knew was his favorite. But I have something you want. He sighed, missing the days when the only thing he wanted was to get her naked. What's that? She smiled like the cat who ate the cream, or more likely the cat that knew the innocent mouse was cornered. Proof, she purred. Bella, we've played this game before. I need to know you're not wearing a wire. She studied him for a moment. The only question is, she said, which do you want more, proof or me naked?
Still want her naked
so much
more.
better. More.
Well, and so how many seds were in there? You never really even heard them.
Right.
There were only a couple because you didn't need more.
Right.
But I did use she purred. No, that's not a said or an asked.
Mm-hmm.
But I had just said she smiled like the cat who ate the cream, or more likely the cat that knew the innocent mouse was cornered. Proof, she purred. So that time it was a
You felt like
conscious
it-
choice. I know the rule, but I chose to break it there because it just played with the words that came before.
Mm-hmm. You also used her name, which
I did,
is
Bella.
a way, right, you said Bella, which is a way you can...
To let us know he's talking.
Exactly, without a dialogue tag.
Right.
So, Shelly, are you going to the party?
Clearly
that
not Shelly talking.
If the conversation is between Shelly and I, it's clear that I said that because I'm naming her. So that's another way to write a dialogue and not have to tag every single sentence.
And then when you do that, you also don't probably have to tag the next sentence. You don't have to say, what was the question?
Shelly, are you going to the party?
No, I'm not, Shelley said.
Right, 'cause
you
it's
don't
gonna
have
be
to. You just
clear
can
that
say, no,
Shelley's
I'm
the one
not,
answering.
because clearly
Right.
Shelley's answering. Right. So you can use action. You can use to set who's talking.
Right, and did you do that?
Her fingers played with the top button of her blouse. I will if you will. So
Okay.
we know it's her that's talking. What we didn't need to say, she said.
Right.
So that action is one way. Name tags, when she used Bella, is another. I think I skipped. I didn't. Yeah, I did. She says, I have proof. Bella, we've played this game before. I need to know you're not wearing a wire. So there is no tag there. because I have the name in, and
Exactly.
she
You
had
didn't
just
need it
spoken
there.
before and
Yep.
after, so
Yep.
we know he's in between.
Isn't having the name in a tag, or is that not called tagging?
Well, it's not tagging the dialogue; it's part of the dialogue.
Okay.
It's putting it right in the dialogue
Right.
so that you don't need a tag.
Right. And the other thing I think that tags are important for is to show the feeling behind the words, because I can say I hate you, and I can mean it many different ways. Sometimes Jonathan will make me laugh so hard I'll practically pee my pants, and I might say I hate you with a huge grin on my face. Well, that's very different than if I growled at him, the other.
Right. So we talked about I hate you, she said sarcastically.
Right.
And instead of saying, because one of the rules is not to add the adverbs.
Right.
So, because that's telling, instead of saying.
So I hate you, she said sarcastically, is terrible.
Yes.
Yep.
I hate you.
I hate you, she said, milk pouring out of her nose because she was laughing so hard.
Right.
Lets you know what was meant behind the words.
Right,
I
that
hate
it
you,
wasn't
the intention.
mean.
Right.
Or.
I've never shot milk out of my nose. Not to.
I never have either.
I've never shot
I
anything
don't
out
really
of my
have
nose.
that on my bucket list.
I'm not saying it's on my list per se. It's just never happened to me.
It's never happened.
Never? You've never laughed so hard it's come out. Oh, that's a
No.
I
shame.
typically can tell when someone's about to do something or say something funny, and I just don't have food or drink in my mouth.
I've come close to it coming out my mouth, but never the nose.
All right. Well, it
Never
wasn't
the
milk. It
nose,
was a
but-
margarita, but it's come out my nose. And it was with my brother David
That
at
must have
Chili's.
burned.
Oh, he's so funny, though. He does this imitation. Anyway. So he'll pull it out all of a sudden. It just comes out of the blue. And, you're just having a serious conversation. Then he goes into this. He calls him Chester.
Yeah.
And so anybody who was at the table would have shot stuff out of their nose. Next time we go to dinner with David, I'll ask him to do it.
I've shot stuff out of my mouth before, but because
Yeah.
if given the choice, it's not going through my nasal
Exactly.
cavity.
Correct.
Well, yeah, but you hold your mouth so tight and you just, it
No,
has
I
to
don't.
come
I
out.
just.
It'll go back in the glass or
That's
something.
like, do you hold sneezes then, or do you just let them go?
Oh,
It
she's
depends
a
where I
sneeze
am.
holder.
She's a sneeze holder.
She's a
That's
holder.
why.
Yeah.
So she's holding that milk
I
for
can't
that
tell you the
margarita.
number of times I've heard her sneeze, and I say, "Bless you," and then she goes, "I peed," because she just held it. She held it in too hard.
Okay, that is not true.
Now there's a visual
That
for
is
you.
totally not true. It came out my nose.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't even know how to get us back.
I know how to get back on track here.
I think that this whole thing is another thing that we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
Is, looking up what exactly was this said debate when we did the research last night. One more thing that we need to know. We think it's so simple to have a dialogue in a book,
Dialogue
a conversation
is
between
not
two
simple.
people.
Right.
But apparently it is not.
Well, and we had the
Done
whole
well.
show on verbs and how to have strong verbs and how that moves the story along. But in the case of a dialogue, you want the tags to be simple so that it doesn't distract the reader from
Because the whole
actual
point is
dialogue.
the dialogue.
Exactly.
It's
That's the
not
main-
letting you know who said what. You just
Right.
want that to be
Right.
kind of ancillary off to the side.
Yep.
This
Yes.
person said it. That's it.
Right.
Because what they said is important.
Correct. And so
Correct.
it's a functional thing that guides the reader, but you don't want them focusing on it or not knowing what a word means, like guffaw,
Right.
or have it overly written because then they're getting pulled away from that dialogue.
I think a good way to show this is, have you ever seen a table read? Like, have you ever seen on TV where they show Seinfeld and, Jerry and Elaine and George reading the script when they first get it?
Yes.
Okay, it's just so flat. There's no personality. It's just, they just read the words. That's dialogue. Well, and so once you see the table read, it's, blah, 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 blah. But then you see the show, you hear the exact same words, and suddenly it's a great Seinfeld episode. I mean, remember the one I watched it last night? We could be gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
There's an example of where dialogue is so important, but it can't just be flat words.
Well, and even more important in a book because we're not seeing it.
Exactly. Right.
We are just reading it, so we're creating that picture inside our own head, which is different for everybody.
Right. And it does go back to the show don't tell mantra.
Right.
Of even in your dialogue, you don't want to tell them he exclaimed loudly, which is redundant anyway.
Right.
And has an adverb in there. You want to say, he said as he raised his fist or pounded the table.
he slammed the table.
Did some sort of action that gives you a hint as to how it was said.
And actually, that's it. We could just right now off the top of our head, because you mentioned that you can do it before the dialogue or you can do it after the dialogue. So give us a line of dialogue.
He spilled his coffee. No, I'm
That's
sorry.
not
That's not dialogue.
Pass the coffee.
Yeah. Pass the coffee.
Yeah. All right. So if we're going to say that, all right. So I'll do before. So, damn it. We should never do things on the fly. It was my idea. Okay. He slammed his fist on the desk. Pass the coffee.
Right.
Which doesn't really make sense, but we need better dialogue.
Or pass the coffee, he said
or
as he
maybe
slammed
the hour and a half of show prep that you did, you could have just written this out. Just throwing that out there.
Right. Or it could be done after. Pass the coffee.
He said as he slammed his fist on the table.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Next week, we'll finish this segment up.
Yeah. Anyway, you can do it before, you can do it after. You can do it by saying the person's name.
Yep.
You can do it with action. You can do it by skipping a tag because the one before and the one after is very clear. And then you're going to use the tag to show the feelings behind the word as well.
Yeah, and there was sort of a rule of thumb that every 3 to 4 lines of dialogue, needs a tag, but certainly not every single one because that just it's cumbersome to read.
Right. Yeah. And the more an action that's involved, the less description there will be. Mm-hmm. If you're running from the bank robbers down the street, you're not going to think, she ran down the street, screamed help and wondered, and then she wondered, I wonder if the police are coming or how soon they'll be here. I wonder if my battery has charged. She'll just run down the street, help.
Right.
And that's it. And then you cut to the next person.
Yeah.
Although I can speak for Deb on this, that she would be thinking all of those things and probably a list of other stuff.
Correct.
And her grocery list.
And she'd be stopping to just jot that down quick so it could be in her next book.
Can you not shoot me right now? I need to take a note.
And I would really be hoping that he was cute and that he actually had my best interests at heart.
And then she asked
and he's
him
a
to be in her
fireman,
book trailer.
And he's gonna
Yes.
and he can dance.
Firemen are not bank robbers.
I need a good bank
he could
robber
be.
in my book trailer. What are you doing on Saturday?
That would be Deb.
Yeah.
She asked with a wink.
That was good.
Are you a firefighter? Do you have my best intentions at heart? What are your intentions?
I actually found this refreshing that I could just stick with said and asked and not have to get all super fancy with the other words.
If the dialogue's good enough, if the dialogue can really tell the story on its own, you don't need anything additional. Correct. If your dialogue is a little weak, you may need to spruce it up a little bit. But as a rule, you want to try to make that dialogue, especially if it's a fiction story, you want to make the dialogue speak for itself.
Ooh,
exactly.
Dialogue speak for itself. We should make that another show. Let your dialogue speak for itself.
See, there she goes, but taking notes again.
Yeah.
Are we walking around that neighborhood?
Yeah, I think we're going to do a little walk around / project update. Mm-hmm. Shell, can I start with you?
Okay. Project update. Okay. So, I decided to shuffle my book around like a puzzle, and I gave you guys some pages, and we did what helped for me. So I guess, Deb, you had spoke one time about doing what's right for you, filtering what works for you. And what works for me is to have you guys live and in color when we're editing. Like, I can't send you the pages, and then you make all the notes, and then I go home with the notes, because then you know what happens? That pile just stays with your notes. And then I go, I don't know what she meant. I don't know where that's supposed to go.
You know what we meant, but
what
you
does
don't
this
have
arrow
it.
mean?
So we did it live on Thursday.
We did it live, and that hugely helped.
Good.
Hugely helped. So
you have editing ADD.
yes,
HD.
yes,
HD.
yes, HD.
Editing in HD. Full color. Mandra and I in full color.
It's great.
So I'm just going to plug along, and you guys are going to be tortured live and in color on our Thursday morning meetings.
That's great. I hope we can get back to our normal place.
I hope so.
The other place was okay, but
It threw us for a loop, though.
Totally threw me for a
Threw
loop.
us for a loop when we're not in our regular table.
I'm sitting in a new podcast chair. That's throwing me for a loop.
Yeah, apparently Mandra
I don't
Welcome.
adapt. I don't adapt well to change. It's going to take me a few episodes to get used to this.
And you have a project update, Mandra?
I do. I am actually meeting with a cardiac transplant nurse tomorrow.
Wonderful.
And she was a huge part of Brad's care after the transplant. She's an amazing nurse. But she has agreed to read the manuscript, both for sort of medical editing, but also because she was there for a lot of it. So if there are pieces that I didn't get quite right or things that I may have forgot that would be important to put in, she's going to help me out with that. And then it'll just be nice to kind of see her and catch up. She also does a lot of nurse training, so I'd be interested in seeing if the book would be something that she thinks would be beneficial for other nurses and medical staff to read.
That's
from
exciting.
a professional standpoint. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's taken me all summer to line up this meeting, but
It'll be worth it.
Thursday at noon, we're doing it. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Very nice.
Deb?
Well, my quick update is that we here on the Writer's Block Podcast NH, we admit that although we're supposed to be professional and the experts, we're not always the experts.
I never said I was.
Well, hang on a second.
Sorry, Jonathan does.
What happened was my wife was able to find out how good my mom is at finding things that are wrong. So she let my mom read the book, and my mom sent her back a plethora of notes.
Right. And
That's
there
a
was,
thesaurus word right there.
yes, very
Yes.
good. A plethora, he said. But yes, so the book is out where, this is a process, and part of the process is discovering that there were still too many mistakes in the book that is comfortable for me to live with. So within the week, it's going to come down for a day. Those mistakes have all been fixed, or are being fixed. I sent all of them to the editor, to my formatter, and she's going to fix them because
You
it
seem
just
so
isn't
calm.
professional.
Like, have you been crying in the shower?
Yeah.
She been crying in the shower?
Not so much always in the shower.
Okay.
There were 2 days where because not only did his mom catch it, and then I also gave it to a student who I trust, a friend of mine, who's she's very, very good. She caught a lot that his mom didn't catch, but his mom caught a lot that she didn't catch. So the fact that they're each not catching them all means they're going to be in there. So I'll admit, I spent 2 days wishing that it was an option, and I literally would, not that I want to do this, but I would rather have to go out into the world naked and walk through my day naked than put my book out with mistakes, because my book is my writing is so important to me that I'd rather you just say, oh, you're a fool, not, oh, your book is a fool, or your book is unprofessional. They can say I'm unprofessional. I can live with that. But so 2 days, I thought maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I thought, I've tried to do everything as well as I could. I've hired an editor. I've hired a formatter. I thought I was safe. I thought that there wouldn't be that many mistakes. Right. So it took me 2 days, and then I
think the lesson learned in this is you got people that are professionals, or supposed to be professionals, and they do the editing or they do the formatting, but you need to have somebody, because those people go through the different iterations of the book. So the notes go back and forth, and that's the place that things get missed, is when you have that familiarity. So having a complete fresh set of eyes prior to the release, I think, is really the answer.
But I had done that. I had done that with multiple people.
Yeah, but you didn't have my mom do it. And she's a professional mistake finder. This is what she has done.
AKA.
She's very good that way.
She missed quite a few. She was great, and I'm glad. And she caught ones that my friend Catherine didn't catch. So, they may still be in there.
What were the mistakes, Deb? Like, were they a comma here, a comma,
Some of them are spacing. There's extra spacing.
Okay.
The word "the" is in the sentence twice, or it's missing the word "to." Like I went the store instead of to the store.
Okay.
I had songs in the book, and instead of having single quotes around the song, I had double quotes around the song.
Who cares?
But you know what? I care. A lot
of that is going to be forgiven as you read,
yes.
right? You're going to insert the to anyway. I went to the store.
Like
Correct.
the 30
And the
people that read it
quotes.
beforehand did.
Yeah.
But the quotes around the song, I don't know. I think that's a detail
if
that really
that
doesn't
was
matter.
the only thing, I wouldn't pull the book down.
Right.
But
because there
were more.
Yeah.
And I'm doing.
But wait a minute. But that's an option, right? To be able to pull the book down, fix the mistakes. It's not like you have 1,000.
Well, my
copies
millions of readers
on the shelf. Yes.
Right. But I am doing, next Monday, a woman is having me at her home, and her book club has read my book, and they're school teachers and a headmistress. So
Wait, can I go to that?
Yes.
Will they be in costume?
I was just going to say,
Bring
he
your
heard
lunch money.
headmistress
Yes.
and naked all in the same.
I am bringing an apology gift to all of them. And I did tell her. I was hoping that she
You're
would do
so
it later.
full of crap. You were bringing a gift.
I know,
anyway.
I was.
You just changed
She's
the
just
name of
calling it an apology gift now.
no, guess
Before it was a thank you for reading my book gift.
No, now I'm bringing two. One's an apology gift, and I'm still bringing the thank you
Are you
for
bringing the
reading my
mug?
book.
What are you bringing?
I don't know if I'll have the mug in time, but
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening and listening to Deb's project update. And check out the Writer's Block. Check out our Facebook page, the Writer's Block podcast, on your favorite podcast catcher. May you be inspired, feel empowered, and be well. Attention cigar smokers or even friends of a cigar smoker. If you're looking to relax with a nice premium cigar or looking for a great gift for a cigar smoker, this is the gift that keeps on giving. Our friends at twoguyscigars.com have created the Cigar of the Month Club. For just $19.99 per month, you or a friend will receive 4 different premium handmade cigars every month, and shipping and handling is included.
Contact twoguyscigars.com. That's the number 2guyscigars.com and go to the Cigar of the Month Club. You can stop anytime because there's no contract, but you won't. This is a tremendous deal for our listeners. Go to twoguyscigars.com. That's the number 2guyscigars.com and click the Cigar of the Month Club.
At the same time, if you want to learn more about the cigars you receive each month, you can smoke along with them on our own podcast called The Cigar Authority. Sit back, relax, and enjoy a nice premium cigar from our friends at twoguyscigars.com.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.